On this episode of CityView, Rays of Hope, a new solar farm helps Austin reach energy goals. Opening doors opens minds, and the lessons help save lives. And it thrives, but we don't want it to. Efforts to stop a water weed. Thanks for joining us. I'm Renee Tejas. Well, imagine a design community in East Austin that brings together places to work, stores, homes, and even connects these places with schools and bus routes. Mayor Lee Leffingwell recently joined city officials and community members in celebrating a $3 million Community Challenge grant. The funds were awarded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to create such a space. This innovative community will be built on 208 acres of undeveloped city-owned land, which is in East Austin's Colony Park. The grant aims to help economic competitiveness in this sometimes underserved area, located east of U.S. Highway 183 between Johnny Morris Road and Decker Lane, north of Loyola Lane.
For a decade long, we've been working to make this dream a reality, and we're very fortunate that with the partnership of HUD, we're able to bring $3 million to this community to make something happen.
And from building that new East Austin community to building the largest solar project in the country, Austin Energy recently helped unveil the Webberville Solar Project, their first utility-scale solar project.
1, 2, 3.
Austin Mayor Lee Leffingwell and former Austin Mayor Will Wynn were among folks who joined Austin Energy for the grand opening of the Webberville Solar Project. Our municipally owned utility will be purchasing all of the power produced there for the next 25 years. The solar farm is 380 acres and is located 20 miles east of Austin in the town of Webberville. The privately built 30-megawatt facility was actually constructed in less than a year. The farm features more than 127,000 solar panels that rotate with the sun throughout the day to maximize energy production.
This is a futuristic-looking display, and I hope when Austinites see this in pictures or in person, they will become fully aware that Austin is a leader across the nation in clean energy as we are in so many other fields.
It'll be part of the 35%, so every customer of ours will be getting a little bit of this energy as a part of their regular energy supply. It mixes with our wind, and as part of our generation goal, we have 200 megawatts of solar in our generation goal.
With Austin Energy's recent solar and wind additions, the utility says it's on target to meet its goal of getting 35% of its energy from renewable sources by the year 2020, and helps Austin's reputation as the clean energy capital of the world. And from a solar farm powered by the sun to the latest policy spun by the Austin City Council, here's an update.
The Austin City Council approved $900,000 in state grant funds for weatherproofing homes for low-income, elderly, and disabled customers. The funds will provide weatherization for 182 residential units at the Mount Carmel and Chase Village housing developments, helping residents make energy-efficient upgrades to their older homes. The weatherization services include insulation repairs, air conditioner replacement, sealing off doors and windows, and replacing inefficient appliances that use a lot of energy. The grant comes from the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Improvements to the community don't stop there. Council authorized funding for improvements to the Zilker Hillside Theater in Zilker Park. The theater will be expanding the stage to provide additional backstage space for storage and more elaborate stage designs. This improvement will not only set the bar for productions, but will also lay the foundation for the future addition of restrooms as well as indoor storage. From the beats on stage to the streets, Council approved an ordinance establishing enforcement for parking in a back-in-angle parking-only zone. Well, what does that mean? The rear wheels of your vehicle must be at an angle and closer to the curb than the front wheels, and no portion of the vehicle can stick out into the roadway to delay the flow of traffic. This newly adapted method of parking on some city streets is meant to improve driver safety with visibility when the driver pulls out of an angled parking space into traffic. A fine for not parking properly in the zone will be $25 to $40. And the search for information is on. Council approved a resolution directing the city auditor to collect more in-depth information about short-term rentals within the city of Austin, those cases where the owner of a home rents it out for a few days at a time to visitors. The city has many interests related to these rentals, from the collection of hotel occupancy taxes to the availability of accommodations for out-of-town guests to the well-being, safety, and stability of neighborhoods. But Council has insufficient and conflicting data related to short-term rentals. The auditor will review and analyze the number and general locations of the short-term rental properties, distinguishing between properties where the homeowner does or does not live on site. The auditor will also examine 311 and 911 calls for service and police or code compliance citations issued at these locations. In all, Council considered 107 items at its January 12th meeting. Its next regularly scheduled meeting is January 26th. For CityView, I'm Larry Schooler.
Thanks for that update. Well, until now, the water weed called hydrilla has covered on average about 80 acres of Lake Austin each year. However, according to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, in 2011 it reached a record high covering 500 acres of the lake. And as you'll see, to help the situation, 6,000 fish, actually sterile Asian grass carp, were released into the lake to eat the hydrilla and help control the exotic weed.
Today we are working with Texas Parks and Wildlife to stock 6,000 grass carp in Lake Austin. Smile! Hydrilla was first discovered in the lake in 1999 by Texas Parks and Wildlife. The lake historically has had another invasive plant, Eurasian water milfoil, has been in the lake for a long, long time, but it's not as problematic as hydrilla. The last survey that Parks and Wildlife did in October showed over 500 acres of hydrilla, which is really problematic. That's a historic high for this lake. Unfortunately, warmer temperatures actually help hydrilla because hydrilla is a warm water plant. What we're seeing here is a result of this ongoing drought in central Texas, and the concern is that this drought is not over and that the warmer temperatures are probably going to continue on Lake Austin for at least the next few years. And that's why we're working with Parks and Wildlife and the other partners to get a larger number of fish in the lake to be able to try and get ahead of that hydrilla growth.
You came from
Arkansas. It takes about 9 hours to get down there.
The fish come from a special hatchery in Arkansas. They're what we call triploid, which means they have 3 sets of chromosomes instead of 2. Basically, the short answer is they're sterile. They cannot reproduce. They cannot produce any kind of viable egg and sperm that could create other baby grass carp. Once they've equalized the temperature and the chemistry in the water, then they will be actually piping the fish.
It won't take them long. 5 minutes, they'll all be gone.
From these tanks.
You're just gonna turn it off on the other side and drag it over there?
Into Lake Austin. It's kind of an amazing sight when you see how fast the fish will basically shoot out of these tanks and hit the water. They'll school around a little bit in the water and kind of get their bearings, and then within 10 or 15 minutes they'll all be swimming away down the lake. There, that's a good shot. I hope they get out there and do some good. Without some sort of check on the hydrilla, this 500 acres could continue to grow and spread and continue to limit the things that Lake Austin has been used for and is so important to the Austin community.
The plant likes warm water, and the warmer water flowing into Lake Austin from drought-stricken Lake Travis is not helping. The fish have been occasionally stocked to munch on the hydrilla since 2003, and this effort is approved by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, which shares the cost with the city. And from an unwelcome plant to planting the seeds of knowledge through CPR, you see the City of Austin's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management recently held a public safety open house. At the event, the public got to take a tour of the Austin-Travis County Emergency Operations Center, see the 911 call-taking dispatch center, and participate in family preparedness activities and exhibits. One of the exhibits was a demonstration on how to perform a type of CPR. Compression-only CPR is one of the most effective methods of saving lives after somebody has gone into cardiac arrest. Timothy Gibbons with the Austin-Travis County EMS gives us a demonstration.
Compression only basically is you use the 3 C's. First thing you do is you check to see if they're awake or if they're alert. And if they're not, you go to the next C, which is you call for help. When you call for help, most of us have a cell phone. Call 911, put it on speaker, kind of put it next to the patient, and then that way you can talk to the operator as you go on to the next step, which is compress. Doing compressions, the goal is non-stop compressions. You want to find your landmarks, which I'll show you, and you want to push, and you want to keep pushing until help gets there. All right, so if you find somebody that's laying down and you're not sure if they're alert or if they're in cardiac arrest or not, first thing you want to do is come up to them and you want to touch them and find out if they're awake or not. Put your hands on them, shake them gently. Sir, ma'am, Are you okay? Are you okay? If you don't get any response, especially if you notice they're not breathing at all, step 2 is going to be to call for 911. If you have a cell phone, call 911 there. Of course, if you don't have a cell phone, you're going to need to leave. Go to a neighbor's house, go to a payphone, whatever you got to do, and call. We got to get the ambulance going. Step 3, and the final step, is going to be to compress. You're going to lift the patient's shirt up to find the landmark. Landmark's going to be between the nipples, center of the chest. Take the bottom of your hand, and then that's the place you want to put your hand. Don't put the palm of your hand in the center, because that's not what you're pushing with. You're pushing with the bottom of your hand. So you're going to put the bottom of your hand in the center of the chest, interlock your other hand over it, and then compress. Now the rate that we want to compress is about 100 times per minute. Some have heard think of the song Staying Alive in the background. That song's about 100 beats per minute, and that's the area we want to be at, 100 beats per minute. And you want to do this uninterrupted until help arrives. So once you're doing the compressions, you're going to realize after about 2 minutes, you're going to be feeling pretty fatigued. So if you have somebody standing around you, whether they know how to do this or not, you can explain to them while you're doing the compressions to come down, put your hands in the middle of the chest, lock your elbows, keep your shoulders over the hands, and push. And then you can take turns.
Hey, that's all for this edition of CityView. I'm your host, Renee Tejas. Our next episode premieres Friday, January 27th. Thanks for watching.